At the top of the world, a new race has begun. The Arctic is melting. As the ice disappears, a new frontier is opening. New trade routes, untapped resources, and rising military activity. Suddenly, countries like Norway, Finland, Sweden, Iceland, and even Greenland are no longer remote. They are strategic. This is not just about ice, it is about power. The question is no longer if the Arctic matters, but who will control it. To understand why, you have to look at what is actually changing in the north. For centuries, the Arctic acted as a natural barrier. Ice made movement almost impossible. Trade routes did not exist. Large-scale industry was too expensive. Military operations were extremely limited. The region was isolated, and because of that, it remained relatively stable. But that isolation is disappearing. The Arctic is warming faster than anywhere else on Earth. In fact, in parts of the far north, temperatures are rising up to 4 times faster than the global average. That speed is beginning to reshape not just the landscape, but the societies that depend on it. The most visible change is the ice. Sea ice is shrinking, and the ice season is shorter. Waters that were once permanently frozen are now open for longer periods each year. But beneath that visible transformation, deeper changes are taking place. Communities that have lived in the Arctic for generations are being forced to adapt. Traditional ways of life are becoming harder to maintain. Reindeer migration patterns are shifting. Ice roads are less reliable, and ecosystems that once followed predictable cycles are becoming unstable. For indigenous groups like the Sami, this is not just environmental change, it is cultural pressure. As industrial activity increases, including mining, infrastructure, and energy projects, the land they depend on is changing faster than ever before. What is seen as an opportunity at a national level can become disruption at a local level. This creates the potential for internal tensions within these countries. At the same time, the retreating ice is opening access to resources. Oil, gas, and critical minerals are becoming easier to explore. Fishing zones are moving northward. New economic opportunities are emerging in regions that were once considered unusable. But these opportunities come with trade-offs. Development in the Arctic is expensive, technically challenging, and environmentally risky. Every decision carries long-term consequences. Norway is one of the countries most directly affected by these changes. It already has experience operating in Arctic conditions. It has infrastructure, and it has access to significant energy reserves in the Barents Sea. As ice conditions change, Norway is in a position to expand further north. This could strengthen its role as a key energy supplier in Europe, especially at a time when security has become more important than ever. But this also brings Norway into closer proximity with Russia. In the Arctic, proximity matters. Economic activity, military presence, and strategic interests begin to overlap. Even small developments can carry geopolitical weight. At the same time, Norway faces increasing pressure to balance economic growth with environmental responsibility. The Arctic is one of the most fragile ecosystems on Earth, and any mistake could have lasting consequences. Finland faces a different kind of transformation. Unlike Norway, Finland does not have direct access to Arctic waters. Still, its geography makes it strategically critical. Its 1,300-kilometer border with Russia places it directly on the edge of a shifting security landscape. As the Arctic gains importance, that border becomes even more significant. Finland's decision to join NATO has already changed the balance in Northern Europe. It has extended the alliance's reach, strengthened coordination, and increased deterrence. But it has also increased pressure. Finland is no longer a buffer, it is part of a front line. That means higher expectations for defense, infrastructure, and readiness. At the same time, Finland is experiencing environmental changes at home. Permafrost is thawing, winter conditions are becoming less predictable, and northern communities are dealing with the direct effects of a changing climate. For Finland, the Arctic is not just a strategic issue, it is a domestic one. Sweden is entering a new phase in this transformation. Its Arctic regions are becoming increasingly valuable because of their resources. Northern Sweden contains large deposits of iron ore, rare earth elements, and other critical minerals. These materials are essential for renewable energy, advanced technology, and defense industries. As global supply chains become more uncertain, these resources are gaining strategic importance. But this shift also forces Sweden to make difficult choices. Mining and development require infrastructure and investment. but they also affect local environments and indigenous communities. Balancing economic opportunity with social and environmental responsibility is becoming more complex. At the same time, Sweden is undergoing a broader geopolitical shift. As tensions in Europe continue, there's a growing discussion about deeper integration with the European Union. Even topics that were once politically sensitive, such as adopting the euro, are being reconsidered, not just for economic efficiency, but as part of a larger strategy to strengthen political alignment and resilience in an increasingly unstable world. This reflects a wider reality. The Arctic is no longer separate from European politics. It is becoming part of it. Denmark, through Greenland, is facing perhaps the most complex transformation of all. Greenland is no longer just a remote territory. It is becoming a central piece in global geopolitics. As the ice sheet melts, new areas are becoming accessible. Resources are attracting attention, and global interest is increasing. Recent developments involving the United States have made that clear. Under Donald Trump, there was renewed and more aggressive interest in gaining control of Greenland. At one point, Trump openly suggested acquiring the island and emphasized its strategic importance. More recently, rhetoric intensified and discussions went beyond simple diplomacy. The message was clear: Greenland is seen as critical for military positioning, for Arctic surveillance, and for future resource access. Both Denmark and Greenland have firmly rejected such ambitions. The island is not for sale, and its future will be determined by its own population. Greenland is now more than a strategic location. It has become a symbol of sovereignty in a rapidly changing region. At the same time, Greenland is evolving. A growing political movement is pushing for greater autonomy and possibly independence. That adds another layer of uncertainty because decisions made in Greenland will directly influence the balance of power in the Arctic. Iceland's role is different but equally important. It is not rich in Arctic resources, and it does not border Russia, but its location makes it critical. As Arctic shipping increases, traffic through the North Atlantic is expected to grow, and Iceland sits directly along these routes. Its ports and infrastructure are becoming more relevant. At the same time, Iceland remains central to monitoring the GIUK Gap, the key naval corridor between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. Any movement between the Arctic and the Atlantic must pass through this region, which makes Iceland essential for surveillance and control. Even without a standing military, it plays a key role in NATO operations. As activity in the region increases, so does its strategic importance. Across all of these countries, a common pattern is emerging. Opportunity is increasing, but so is complexity. The Arctic is opening, but it is not becoming easier. It remains one of the most extreme environments on Earth. Conditions are unpredictable, infrastructure is limited, and operations are expensive. Environmental risks are high. An accident involving oil, shipping, or industrial activity could be devastating. And then there is the geopolitical dimension. Russia continues to expand its presence in the Arctic. China is increasing its involvement through investment and research, and NATO is strengthening coordination across the region. This creates a situation where cooperation and competition exist at the same time, and where small changes can have large consequences. For the Nordic countries, this means navigating a very delicate balance. They must protect their interests, support economic development, maintain stability, and avoid escalation, all at once. For centuries, the far north was defined by distance. It was separated from global power, difficult to reach, easy to ignore. But that era is ending, because the Arctic is opening. And as it opens, Scandinavia, Finland, and Iceland are moving from the edge of the map to the center of global strategy. The ice is disappearing, and with it, the barriers that once kept the world apart. What was once remote is now connected. What was once overlooked is now essential. And the countries of the North are no longer watching from the sidelines. They are shaping what comes next.